Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Engineering Major, Philosophy Minor. The acronym I have designated for that is EMPM. This is the channel where you can get a working aerospace engineer's opinions on topics pertaining to engineering, politics, philosophy, and various other social and cultural issues. So over the past couple days, I have been reading a couple interesting headlines and articles specifically pertaining to climate change. And then what happened was a advertisement popped up on my feed for a Dear Earth video from President Barack Obama, which I have not watched yet. So part of this is going to be responding to that. I'm sure that's going to be a delight. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of these articles right here. Climate change. Mars and PepsiCo offer lessons in decarbonization, call for a redesign of supply chains. Guys, this is the exact reason. I mean, this is one of the reasons why the supply chain is so messed up. Because we keep putting these stupid government regulations on top of doing normal business, right? The path to net zero emissions is often a long and winding maze. Yeah, it's a long and winding maze because literally everything that we do requires CO2 emissions, and CO2 isn't a pollutant, and nobody knows for sure whether or not CO2 is actually the reason for climate change. And by the way, there isn't really a solid definition on what climate change actually is specifically. 90% of our footprint, I'm assuming that's our carbon footprint, is embedded in the raw materials or packaging or goods and services that we buy. Okay, so what you're saying here is 90% of your footprint is 90% of your business. Congratulations. I want to skip down to, look at this. Global emission greenhouses. I just noticed, I looked at this a little bit. Look at where coal, oil, and natural gas are as a percentage of the global emissions. And yet we're so obsessed with getting rid of these affordable, reliable, persistent, consistent, and abundant forms of energy in favor of wind and crap like that. I want to jump down to a spot here. Well, first off, we got to do this, okay? Look at this image right here. A worker operates a potato receiving machine at PepsiCo plant. Okay, what did it... Look at all these... Okay, so there's probably some steel here. Most of this is probably steel. Maybe there's some aluminum on here. The belt here is probably some kind of rubber that these are going on. The potatoes had to get transported here by truck. You know, this guy's wearing textiles. He's wearing rubber boots. All these railings and stuff like that had to be formed. I'm sure they had to be welded in some way. They had to be bolted to the ground. The bolts had to be made. All this factory equipment. Look at all this piping here that requires that those are probably either hot water or hot gas lines or gas return lines or cooling tower lines. This is just one small room in what is probably a giant factory. How do you think all that stuff got there? It was not with solar farms and wind turbines, guys. If you're an environmentalist, you have to get this through your head that there is always going to be a trade-off with literally everything in life. In fact, as an engineer, that's what I do pretty regularly is trade studies. Okay, I want to get rid of weight here. Well, then I have to get rid of strength here. Okay, I want to switch this material here. Okay, that means I'm going to have to sacrifice on this requirement here. Okay, I want to shift this element of the design. All right, that means I'm going to have to do all this additional work here. Or vice versa, we could do this. We're going to save work here. It's going to be harder in this area. We're going to have to do more testing here, etc. Everything is always a trade-off, okay? If you sacrifice all this stuff because maybe at some point in the arbitrary future, we might reach a turning point, which has never been reached every time it's been predicted, that after that turning point, it's going to be an inevitable spiral to human demise. I'm sorry, but there's just not enough data to justify getting rid of everything you see in this image right here and replacing it with stuff that doesn't work and just makes it more expensive. So the trade-off for you is not, are you going to be doomed in 10 years? The trade-off for you is, are your kids going to be able to get affordable food in the near term? Okay? Quote, they don't all sit in one place. They don't all grow the same crops. They don't have the same level of sophistication. And we've basically committed to bringing all of them along. Jim Andrews. Who's Jim Andrews? This is what he says. He's PepsiCo's chief sustainability officer. Guys, this is technically a C-suite style position, right? There's the CEO, there's the CFO, sometimes there's the CTO. Now there's a CSO. What does this guy do except find ways for the company to waste more money on stuff that isn't actually going to matter in the long run? Look at this. PepsiCo launched a large-scale education campaign working with medium and large-sized farms to introduce new farming practices. For instance, regenerative farming. All farming is regenerative. You grow the crops, you harvest the crops, you plant new crops, they regrow, which incorporates cover cropping and crop rotation. This aims to improve efficiency, but also take carbon out of the atmosphere and return it back to the soil. That's what plants do, just by their nature. Well, the practice itself has been around decades. Parkin and Andrews says just 1% of farmers have actually adopted it. Here we go. In part because of the cost associated with the complete overhaul. So would you rather these farmers, this is the trade-off right here. Would you rather these farmers shift absolutely everything that they do, reduce crop yields, have the price of goods go up, have you have to pay more, and then also, meanwhile, everyone's demanding a higher minimum wage, so you have to pay even more, just for a little bit of reduction in carbon emissions? And by the way, you don't even know if a reduction in carbon emissions is going to change anything about the climate. Here's the other thing. What if what you do to this farmer puts them completely out of business, and then you just have to go to a different farm? Because that's what happens, right? And then the cost of goods goes up, and then you're going to be upset about inflation and the cost of goods going up. There's a trade-off. So you think, look, like me, I have a nice career, and if this happens to me, it's not that big of a deal, right? But there are billions of people around the planet where this is a huge, huge problem. Okay, if they can no longer buy these products at the dollar store, this is a big problem, because these people are living in abject poverty. They probably don't have electricity, and the only thing they have to keep warm is to burn wood or to burn their own excrement or the excrement of animals. This right here is part of the reason why the supply chain is so messed up. Okay, I mean, mostly right now it's so messed up because we many places locked the country down for way too long, and then the government decided to step in and fix it and just incentivize people not to go back to work. But then the other thing is, on top of that, now we keep trying to throw in all these stupid green initiatives, which basically just make everything less efficient and less reliable and cost more. How about this? So I'm an investor in GE. I bought in at GE when it was really low price, and then they did a reverse stock split. And so I've made good money off of GE, and they have decided they're actually going to split the business into 3 different companies. One's going to be a healthcare company, one's going to be an aviation company, and the third is going to be an energy company. Okay? GE Energy spinoff aims to capture interest in renewables. Dude, get out of here. So when my stock, gets split up among these companies, don't count me in on this. I will sell that immediately in exchange for the aviation business. Why? Because the aviation business is actually making a product that's efficient and people need, and is reliable, and has been proven, and has a backlog of orders. But you're going to invest in like wind turbines and solar panels, which are known to be unreliable and more expensive, and also more heavily reliant on China for raw goods. Get out of here. No. Let's watch Barack Obama's thing here.
Hi, everybody. I've spoken at a lot of events over the years, including some with pretty impressive lineups, but I've never been part of the same program as Pope Francis, Blackpink, and SpongeBob SquarePants.
Wow. I mean, That's yeah, that is really impressive lineup. I think like just because of the lineup, I should just believe everything you say in this video.
I am a little starstruck. But the fact that all of them are part of this, along with a lot of other folks, should tell you how important this fight against climate change really is.
Yeah, how important is it that we attempt to turn one knob that we think might stop global mean temperatures from rising by 1.5 degrees Celsius over the next 100 years. Yet tell me how important that fight is to really just completely transform supply chains and completely transform our way of lives and give up literally everything that everyone has built utilizing fossil fuels and send a bunch of people into abject poverty while most of the uninhabitable places on the globe are uninhabitable because they're too cold, just so we can stop 1.5 degrees C. Tell me how important that is.
Of course, you already know that. You see it in the reports about 100-year floods, or record-breaking wildfires, or severe droughts.
So none of that ever happened before climate change, huh? Yeah, gosh, that's so insightful. None of that ever happened before.
Many of you are feeling the effects of climate change every day. And if we don't do something about
I keep pausing this. I'm sorry, guys. Actually, I don't feel the effects of climate change every day because there's this wonderful thing called fossil fuels and high energy density products that allowed all of us to build shelters that are actually climate controlled on the inside and actually resist the elements, right? What happened back in the day in, very, very rural, non-modernized society when there was a drought? Everyone died or everyone had to move. What happened when there was a famine? Everyone died and everyone had to move. What happened when there was a blizzard? Everyone died and everyone had to move. That happened for millennia before us. But here, you're going to say that we need to give up all this stuff that we built to stop that from happening, right? Like we intentionally built all this stuff so that we would not have to move when there's a famine, so that we would not have to move when there's a drought, so that we could handle extreme weather events, so that we could rebuild after those in an efficient and productive way, right? We should give all that up because you're worried that it might get a little bit more severe over the next 100 years. Give me a break, dude.
things will only get worse. Now, the easiest thing to do would be to throw up your hands and hope that somebody else solves the problem. That's what some people in my generation have done, but I don't think you're going to do that. And here's why.
Oh my God, yeah. Some of us, gosh, my generation we just left behind such a terrible world with air conditioning and heating and iPhones and computers and all this wonderful modern technology, and you can go to university and you can become a chief sustainability officer and, basically shield yourself from climate change. You can become a politician like Barack Obama and live off the taxpayer dollar basically for your entire life. Okay, well, maybe that's a little bit disingenuous. Barack Obama wasn't obviously in the public sector his entire life. He was a lawyer for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, gosh, we just really wreck the world for those, you can get strawberries and apples and potatoes and kiwis and bananas and, you can get all this stuff year round at any grocery store. Yeah, gosh, we wrecked the planet so bad. We just made it so tough on everyone. And now it's up to you to basically vote for Democrats.
When you look at the history of so many social movements, whether it's the civil rights movement or decolonization around the world or anti-war movements, they're often started and sustained by young people. That's because you understand what Dr. King called the fierce urgency of now. You don't see the way things are and assume that's the way they'll always be. You can imagine something different.
Yeah, I can imagine that different thing being that all your predictions about climate have been wrong at all turns, and it's way too complicated of a phenomenon for us to reasonably predict. And when we do predict it, the worst case scenario is that we might have to move some things in a little bit further from the shoreline because the sea levels rose a little bit. Well, yeah, that sounds really awful. We might have to make our retaining walls 2 inches thicker so that they can resist 150 mile per hour winds rather than 110 mile per hour winds.
And you're willing to put in the work to make it happen. That's what makes me hopeful about the fight against climate change. Through the Obama Foundation, I've had the chance to meet folks like you who are helping to protect our planet. And what I've been so impressed by,
Dude, get to the point, man. What do you want us to do?
Is the fact that you aren't waiting for the people who got us into this mess to dig us out.
Your entire claim is that the government, you, can dig us out of the mess, though.
You're doing it yourselves. Even if you're not old enough to vote, you're knocking on doors for candidates who will take action on climate change.
Here we go. Yeah, see, that's what it is. You know, it's not about just vote for people like Obama, and, you know, all your problems will be solved by the government. Give me a break, man.
And then holding them accountable. You're demanding that companies stop being part of the problem and start being part of the solution.
Yeah, all those companies. This came from a company. My camera, this microphone came from a company. All the food in my fridge came from a company. The refrigerator itself came from a company. These books were published by a company. I mean, look, my car was made by a company. The buildings here were built by a company. Yeah, they're so much part of the problem, man. No, they've made our lives amazing. So how about we stop acting like victims of the sun monster and just get to work?
And you're encouraging friends, family, and anyone else you know to join the movement. All of us have to find our own path to service. No one can do it for you. But if enough young people make their voices heard, that's how progress gets made. That's how things move forward. Even on a problem as big and complicated and difficult as climate change. Maybe especially on a problem like that. So just like you wouldn't let your grandparents pick the music you listen to or the clothes you wear, don't let anyone else decide your future.
Oh, wow. What a great message. So how about this, Obama? I don't want you to decide my future of not using fossil fuels and of not using nuclear energy, because I know that there's superior forms of energy, and we'll just deal with some very minor adverse consequences of them in the near and long term.
Put yourself out there. Take a risk. Imagine a better future and help make it real.
You know what's funny is I'm actually taking a bigger risk at making this video because YouTube is going to put a little stupid card beneath it, which, funny story, you know, the description that they put in the cards has changed like 3 or 4 times since they started doing that with regard to climate change, because like nothing absolutely horrible happens with climate, even though ever since Al Gore made his stupid movie, they've been literally saying that it's going to be worse and worse catastrophe every single year until the human race goes extinct, and it just like hasn't happened. Isn't that funny? I'm taking a bigger risk making this video than anyone who just complains that we actually need to take action on climate change is taking. Like, right, you don't get a card if you get on here and you start talking about how climate change is the worst thing ever, and like we just need to completely transform our way of life and eat bugs and, you know, never drive cars again and bike everywhere that we go and forget about, you know, building a nice home or irrigating your lawn or having kids. You know, you get on here and you say that, you don't get a little card. You know, you don't get a little card beneath your video that says anti-human extremism present in this video. You know, exercise with caution. No, you get a card if you're just an actual engineer who deals with, you know, heat transfer and fluid air interaction and things like that, saying that he doesn't really believe that climate change is all that bad if it even is real. Like that's the person who gets punished. That the perfectly reasonable position gets punished over the anti-human extremist communist position. Awesome.
Because the world is counting on you. I'm counting on you. SpongeBob and Blackpink are counting on you. And there's no time to waste.
That's it? This is a YouTube original. To do what, Obama? That literally the only thing he told people to do in this video was just go vote. So let me ask this. At the beginning of the Obama administration, it was like the world's going to end in 15 years. And, Obama was president for 8 years. So that's about, 50% of that time. Apparently everything just got worse since then, right? But in what way? I mean, how come it got worse if voting for people like Obama is just the solution? In fact, I don't even know if Obama was really claiming that was the solution, so maybe that's a little bit unfair. But I mean, what a pointless video, Actually, I take that back. It's not a pointless video. See, here's the point of that. Here's the point of this video. And this is where I'm gonna close on this in a second. The point of that video is to make you feel like you're a hero of the planet, your Captain Planet himself, and that if you go around voting for people who want to smite your enemies, who want to completely destroy the livelihoods of others so that you can save the planet, right? Then you will be the exalted hero, and you will have punished all the wrongdoers, and the world will be a better place because of you. That's the point of that video. It's to convince you that if you just support Democrat, communist, and socialist policy, and you completely change everyone else's life based on your policy, whether or not they like it, whether or not it affects them, then you're the superhero of the planet. That's the point of videos like that. That's called propaganda, guys. So with that, I'm going to hop off. There's plenty of other things to talk about, but I always make these too long. So later, guys.